Discovering Brunei. The Brunei Darussalam is located at the northwestern part of the island of Borneo, facing the South China Sea and surrounded by East Malaysia. The official name is Negara Brunei Darussalam, short form Brunei. The capital city is Bandar Seri Begawan. The government type is Malay Islamic Monarchy. Their independence is January 1st, 1984. Their constitution is 1959. Geography location: Southeastern Asia on the island of Borneo, bordering the South China Sea and Brunei Bay. Their area is 5,765 km square or 2,206 square miles. Their terrain is East flat coastal plain, rises to mountains, West hilly lowland and few mountain ridges. Their people's nationality is Bruneians. Their population is 417,200 as of the year 2015. Their ethnic groups are Malay, Chinese, other indigenous groups. Religion is Islam. Their languages are Malay, English, Chinese, Iban, and other indigenous dialects. Literacy is 94.7%. Their export commodities is mineral, fuels, and organic chemicals. Brief history of Brunei. Brunei's full name is Negara Brunei Darussalam. The country of Brunei, abode of peace. The pre-Islamic history of Brunei is unclear, but archaeological evidence shows the country to have been trading with the Asian mainland as early as Common Era or CE 518. Islam became predominant during the 14th century and the Brunei Sultanate rose to prominence in the 15th and 16th centuries, when it controlled coastal areas of northwest Borneo, parts of Kalimantan, and the Philippines. The Dutch, Portuguese, and Spanish began arriving after the 16th century. Brunei lost outlying possessions to the Spanish and the Dutch, and its power gradually declined as the British and Dutch colonial empires expanded. Brunei was trading with China during the 6th century, and through allegiance to the Javanese Mahapahit Kingdom in 13th to 15th century, it came under Hindu influence. In the early 15th century, with the decline of the Mahapahit Kingdom and widespread conversion to Islam, Brunei became an independent sultanate. It was a powerful state from the 16th to the 19th century, ruling over the northern part of Borneo and adjacent island chains. But Brunei fell into decay and lost Sarawak in 1841, becoming a British protectorate in 1888, a British dependency in 1905. Japan occupied Brunei during World War II. It was liberated by Australia in 1945. Some key dates in Brunei's history. In 15th century, Islamic Sultanate of Brunei, nominally in control of Borneo, including Sabah and Sarawak, State of Malaysia, and some parts of the Sulu Island in the Philippines. 1888, Brunei becomes a British protectorate. 1963, Brunei chooses to remain a British dependency rather than join the Federation of Malaysia. 1967, Hassan al-Bolkiah becomes Sultan following the abdication of his father, Sultan Omar. 1984, Brunei becomes independent. 2014, Brunei becomes the first East Asian country to adopt Islamic Sharia law despite widespread international condemnation. Brunei Darussalam is a peaceful sultanate with long history steeped in culture and is famed for its luxurious rainforest teeming with colorful flora and fauna. The country is a perfect blend of the heritage it has preserved and the modern world it has evolved into. See for yourself the vibrant colors of Kampong Ayer and the pristine rainforest of Temburong. Experience Brunei Darussalam's tranquil lifestyle and friendly people. discovering the wonders and sights of the serene country in the heart of Borneo.
Alright, so as a continuation of our discussion, since you were able to now to identify the country profile of Brunei, as well as the brief history of the country, so right now, let me discuss to you the geographic challenges of Brunei. First is climate. With increasing global surface mean temperature and weather variability due to global warming, Brunei Darussalam is vulnerable to the following impacts like flooding, landslide, strong winds, loss of forestry and biodiversity, loss of food security, and public health impacts. Next would be sociocultural. Financial hardship is the most serious problem with a score of 39%, followed by violence and public disorder, which is 33%, truancy and bully and abuse, which is 22%. So there are 9 categories of sociocultural problems in Brunei. First one is truancy, violence and public disorder, drugs and substance abuse and trafficking, vandalism, theft, sexual deviation, personal safety, bullying and exploitation. Speaking about technological advancements of Brunei Darussalam, the development of digital technologies such as cybersecurity, big data, Internet of Things or IoT, AI, and 5G are key areas of focus that are being actively implemented in Brunei Darussalam. So let's move on to the population of Brunei. The current population of Negara Brunei Darussalam is 445,509 as of June 4 of 2024 according to Worldometer. Brunei Darussalam's population is equivalent to 0.01% of the total world population. The population density in Brunei Darussalam is 83 per kilometer squared or 215 people per mile. So now let's talk about pollution. Although to date that Brunei Darussalam has no major environmental problems, pollution is one of the rampant issues in Brunei. And one major pollution is the air pollution. Air pollution control is now a growing concern in Brunei Darussalam. It is realized that there is a lack of information due to the lack of studies in the area. So these are the reason why air pollution is rampant to Brunei. First one is emission from motor vehicles. Second, open burning. Third, forest fires, volcanic ashes, and then burning of plastics. So right now let's talk about the major economic problems of Brunei. Brunei's economy is totally dependent on the exploitation of its vast reserves of petroleum and natural gas. Although oil and gas revenues have allowed the state to give its citizen one of the highest per capita income in Asia, they also made the country dependent on a single commodity that is subject to market fluctuations. So let's talk about trade. With an estimated population of 453,000 in 2020, Brunei's local market is relatively small. Foreign enterprises are allowed 100% ownership of business scope, operation, and investment. As much as foreign investors are not required to find a local partner to enter the market, business investors should expect delays, sometimes long ones, when dealing with a local government. So aside from trade, let's also discuss what is tariffs. Brunei generally has very low tariffs. The customs, import, and Excise Duty Amendment Order of 2017 was created with the aim of facilitating trade, attracting FDI, and fulfilling commitments under existing free trade agreements. So let's jump to import. Brunei has no sovereign debt, domestic or foreign, and has not been the recipient of economic aid, despite importing most consumer goods and food. Brunei's large oil exports keep its trade balance.
Hello, this is Layla Chana, and I will be discussing the major political problems in Brunei. So, first off are the territorial conflicts. The latest so far is on July 20 when Brunei, a silent claimant of the South China Sea, finally made a statement. The political constituents of Brunei believe that choosing the rightful claimant of the South China Sea should be bilateral and adherent to the 1982 UN Convention for the Law of the Sea. It must also stress the decision must also stress the importance of ASEAN-China Code of Conduct. Another territorial conflict that Brunei has underwent is about Louisa Reef. So Louisa Reef is a part of the Spratleys Island archipelago, which is also claimed by China, Taiwan, and Vietnam. Brunei and Malaysia also went through a maritime boundary dispute, but this dispute was solved in 2009 through letters. So this dispute was solved and it gained access to the delimitation of maritime boundaries for both countries. It also propelled the construction of Commercial Arrangement Areas, or CAAs, which involves oil and gas. And lastly, the delimitation of both nations' territorial waters, continental shelves, and exclusive economic zones, or EEZs. Next, we will be discussing the external threats that Brunei faces. So first off is political legitimacy. This is basically the popular acceptance of a government. So of course, political legitimacy is important because through it, power can be exerted through compliance, which is either voluntary or semi-voluntary. Next is the territorial borders and maritime disputes, which we discussed earlier on. And lastly, the national sovereignty of Brunei. So I think that these are external threats because, of course, they put into question Brunei's legitimacy, Brunei's capability as a nation, as well as its political power. For the last part of my report, we will be discussing the internal conflict that Brunei faces. So this is basically Brunei's government versus the people they serve. First off, to preface, Brunei is ruled by an absolute monarchy. This means that they have no democratic institutions. So I think that Brunei is one of the last countries to practice an absolute monarchy because most of Asian countries are already democratic. This is considered an internal conflict because the people cannot choose their leaders. Whoever is next in line to become the Sultan is, of course, meant to serve the people next, no matter what the circumstances are, which I find problematic because it affects, of course, the entire country and how it is ruled, how its practices are being maintained, how their laws are being practiced as well. So next is the social and political norms differ in Brunei from other countries. I think that this is, of course, normal since a lot of countries, of course, differ in some ways and are similar in some as well. Much like the differences in Eastern and Western cultures. But of course, since Brunei practices an absolute monarchy, there are indeed some differences that are often, a trademark character. So, of course, as social and political norms are different, we can actually connect this to the next point, which is the restriction of the right to free speech and assembly in Brunei. So, of course, I think that this is a good example for the social and political norms that differ, because here in the Philippines, for example, our people, like us as people, as citizens, we are allowed the right to our free speech. We are allowed the right to dissent, the right to peaceful assembly. But of course, there are some lapses in that, I do admit, but compared to the restrictions that are imposed on Brunei and its people, it is definitely way more alarming, way more grave, because of course, due to the absolute monarchy, the people are controlled in a way that there is no press freedom. The media outlets in Brunei are actually controlled by, of course, the ruling family. So the news and the media that the people consume in Brunei are controlled by the people who rule the whole country, which I think is alarming because, of course, without these rights, without these freedoms, how can we call ourselves a sovereign nation? How can we call ourselves free people? So that ends my discussion on the major political problems that Brunei faces. Thank you for listening, and the next few slides will be discussed by my groupmate.
Countries' involvement in ASEAN. Soon after assuming full independence in January 1984, Brunei Darussalam joined ASEAN as its sixth member. Brunei Darussalam takes part in a number of regional mechanisms through ASEAN, including the ASEAN Regional Forum, ASEAN Plus 3, and the East ASEAN Summit. On November 20, 2007, His Majesty the Sultan Anyang di Pertuan of Brunei Darussalam, along with other ASEAN leaders, signed the ASEAN Charter in Singapore. On January 31, 2008, Brunei Darussalam became the second member state to ratify the charter following Singapore. Nationals of Brunei Darussalam have served in the ASEAN Secretariat, including Dato Roderick Young, ASEAN Secretary General, in the year 1986 to 1989. Dato Haji Mahadi Wasli, Deputy Secretary General, in the year 1994 to 1997. Pinggiran Dato Mashor PG Ahmad, Deputy Secretary General, in the year 2003 to 2005. And currently Dato Lim Jok Hoy, ASEAN Secretary General, in the year January 2018 to December 2022. Brunei Darussalam is the current ASEAN Republic of Korea, or ROC, Dialogue Relations Country Coordinator from 2018 to 2021, and the incoming ASEAN-New Zealand Conversation Relations Country Coordinator from 2021 to 2024. Brunei Darussalam served as the country coordinator for ASEAN-ROC dialogue ties, according all areas of ASEAN's relations with the ROC and acting as a liaison with other ASEAN member states on ASEAN-ROC issues.
What are the country's benefits of joining ASEAN? The potential impact of ASEAN on Brunei. Brunei is the smallest country in Southeast Asia with a population of 400,000 people. It is the center of ASEAN single market and production base. Under the first pillar, ASEAN has worked out to improve and trade and invest in the region. The achievements of the local Bruneian companies such as Sabli Foods, BMC, KTM, and Trison are some many success stories and made possible thoughts of AEC. Local companies can benefit from the lowering production costs, for the example, through accumulation and access for the cheaper raw materials. Competitive economic region. ASEAN's efforts under Pillar 2 are aimed to improving the competitiveness not only for each ASEAN member state but also the region as the whole. As a result, ASEAN's target of commitments under the pillar efforts have been focused on developing capabilities of each ASEAN member state, including Brunei and others that were targeted at improving the region's attractiveness for trade and investment. At the same time, Brunei has introduced several laws, including the Competition Order 2015 and the Consumer Protection Order 2011, to make the country attractive destination in foreign direct investment. A region with equitable economic development. Under the third pillar, efforts have been concentrated towards ensuring that the benefits of improved trade and investment in the region would keep the equitable share enjoyed the lesser developed economies as well as MES, whose active contributor region would be also equitable shared enjoyed and lesser developed economies. A region that is fully integrated into the global economy. The work of the fourth pillar aims to ensure that AEC will not be isolated but will instead a relevant and a key player in the global economy. To achieve this objective, ASEAN has established free trade agreements. As you can see, when Brunei joins ASEAN, mostly the problems of their country was solved. Many laws are made, free trade means are made, and the economic problems was lower before, but now it has increased.
References.